Hey YouTube, it's Chris, welcome back to the channel. In this guide I'll help you get the highest frames and lowest latency out of the finals with your PC. Benchmarks are tested with these specs. Do not expect identical results on your hardware. That said, you can expect similar scaling with my recommendations. Alright, default settings versus optimized settings. Keep in mind default settings is basically everything ultra, which is what the game set it to, but we've turned any upscaling method off. In 4K default, we're getting 155 FPS and 14 milliseconds input lag. Going to the optimized settings, we're getting 374 FPS with 8.5 milliseconds input lag. Default on 1440p, 275 FPS and 10 milliseconds input lag. Going to the optimization setting, 465 FPS and 5.6 milliseconds input lag. On 1080p default, 375 FPS at 10 milliseconds input lag. For the optimization settings, 466 FPS at 5 milliseconds input lag. It's quite interesting to see, even with a 5090, this game is super GPU heavy. Optimizing game settings in config files can only do so much. Please consider going through this video and GitHub guide to cover the basic Windows and BIOS optimizations. If hardware is limiting your performance, please check out my build guide for upgrades and PC build suggestions. Make sure to update the latest graphics drivers, or at least the recommended version from the game developer or game mentioned in driver patch notes from the driver developer. The NVIDIA app with certain settings turned on will cause frame rate loss. Turn off optimized games and creative applications. Turn off automatically optimized newly added games and apps. Avoid using game filters and statistics. As far as AMD drivers, I've not seen any tests. Be cautious. Game launchers should have logging, game overlay, hardware acceleration, cloud sync turned off. Please do this for web browsers, Spotify, Discord, or anything else open while you play your games. Any monitoring or RGB program causes frame rate loss even closed. This includes Asus Armoury Crate, MSI, Gigabyte, ASRock driver utilities, NZXT Cam, Corsair IQ, Lee L Connect, and etc. Uninstall if possible. Services and drivers for these apps still run even if the apps are closed. GPU-Z, hardware info, MSI Afterburner, and etc. can cause frame rate problems when logging GPU power. Close these out when gaming or turn off GPU power logging. If you'd like your BIOS, game, PC, Windows fresh, tuned, and optimized, check out my PC service. All links can be found in the description below, just check Linktree. I tested FrameGen 2 times and 4 times. It increases our input lag a lot. Please do not use FrameGen for a multiplayer title. Reflex on versus off. Please leave it on. It makes a really nice reduction in input lag. Only plus boost if you're CPU bound. Nobody's going to be CPU bound here. Resizable bar on boosted our frame rate. Please don't disable it. If you do want to test disabling it, you will have to disable it in BIOS and also the game profile in NVIDIA Inspector, as it is forced on, or at least it was with my card and my driver. Please just leave it on for this game. Testing hyperthreading here off completely. I did 1080p here just to make it a little bit more CPU bound. What was interesting is it actually did boost our frames a little bit and our 1% lows, but did lower our 0.1% lows. So this might be worth playing around with if you have a high-end CPU. If most of you guys have a mid to lower end CPU, I would definitely not recommend disabling hyperthreading or SMT. For most of you, please leave it on, but for power users that are willing to test something, it might be worth turning off. Unfortunately, because of the anti-cheat, it is impossible to do this with an Infinity script, so I had to test with BIOS here. DirectX 11 launch option actually boosts our frames ridiculously, and unfortunately it runs all fine in the test range. If you go play a real match with DirectX 11, our frames actually don't see an increase, and unfortunately we get massive stutters in game. So I think the game developers never optimized this game for DirectX 11, so I do not recommend even trying it. Capping your frames can get a little interesting. Some game engines behave quite differently and prefer either an external cap or an internal cap, or sometimes River Tuner can be a little bit better. In this case, in-game cap is best, and usually in-game cap is always best, but I've not always seen that for every game engine, mind you. Now keep in mind, us capping our frame rate when we're GPU bound, even with reflex, is actually lowering our latency here. I've done a video on that, my input lag video, you guys should go check that out. But I'm seeing the same behavior here, just as I did with Marvel Rivals. When you're GPU bound, even with reflex, let's say 95% GPU usage, sometimes actually capping your frame rate to get a value lower than that can lower our latency. So yes, I could run around with 374 FPS in the test range here, but if I cap my frames to 235, just as an example, we're lowering our input lag quite a little bit from 8.5 milliseconds all the way to 7.4. So keep that in mind. You might actually be worth capping your frame rate in this game to lower your latency, because most of you are going to be GPU bound. Now this might change when Reflex 2 comes out and it might do a better job, but for now it seems like with Unreal Engine 5, you're better off using an in-game cap to cap your frame rate to stay well below, I would say about, stay around 90% GPU usage, you'd probably be okay. I'll show you how to import the config two ways, the hard way and the easy way. Head over to GitHub, guys. Click on GitHub game configs. It should be right here. A little bit of an about. Use these configs as a starting point to improve performance, adjust binding, sensitivity, refresh rate, and resolution to your preference. Settings are subjective, so these configs are not definitive. High-end GPU owners can afford to experiment with higher graphics settings. Disclaimer caution, your existing game settings will be removed when importing these configs, so just keep that in mind. So I'll show you guys the hard way to import the config. Go to the finals folder, go to the finals.zip, click download raw file, go to your downloads folder, right click, go extract all, and press extract. It should open this. These are the two files we need to put in a certain place. For most of you, right click the file, go to properties, down the bottom click unblock, apply OK, and then the next one click properties, unblock, apply OK. So the files are unblocked. Now we need to put these files in two places. I want you to press Windows key R, then type app data, then press enter. I want you to go to local, discovery, saved, config, Windows client. Game user settings need to go to game user settings, so you could copy and paste, replace. Then the other file needs to go to save games, copy, paste. So that is a difficult way to do it, and I'd rather you guys not. Also, I'll let you guys know if you're doing it the difficult way and you want to reload your shaders, you can delete these two files. Now, the smart option is scroll down, use the IWR, click copy code, copy, type PowerShell in your start menu, right click PowerShell, run as administrator, Control V to paste, press enter. I have a nice little list here. At the moment, the finals is at number 6, so press number 6 and then press enter. That will actually delete the folder entirely and import the fresh config, including deleting the shader cache files, so your shaders will reload when you boot the game. You can press any key here, exit this here. Let's go boot up the game. Now if you ever see this because you've imported a new config, just press skip. It should reload shaders from scratch. Okay, we're in the game. Go to settings, just go up here. Now if the config imported properly, settings sort of look like this. Now keep in mind, the config is set to maximize frames. If you don't mind have a bit of an FPS hit and you want your game to look better, my advice there would be go ahead and turn up your textures. Now if you're super GPU limited, you don't have the fastest card and you think your CPU can spit out more frames, consider running either a lower resolution or playing around with some of these resolution scaling methods, okay? NVIDIA DLSS or AMD FSR, they might be worth playing around with if you don't mind the slightly visual, or I would say massively visual quality loss, but it will boost your frames if your CPU can spit out more. There's not much else to talk about apart from the graphics in here. It's all pretty standard. As far as the audio, I did notice something pretty cool. Night mode is very similar to loudness EQ in Windows, so I've left that on. So hopefully this config will get you guys out of trouble and help out a lot. If any of you are curious on how to try the DirectX 11 launch option, even though I really don't recommend it, in Steam, right click the finals, go properties, in launch options in general, click this, type DX11, that is it. You can go back in and check that it's on, and if you want to remove it, you can actually just delete this here. I'll launch the game and show you that it's actually working in DirectX 11. As you guys can see here, I've launched the game successfully and Richard is telling me that we are indeed in DirectX 11. But unfortunately, the game runs horrible with it, so I can't see the developers fixing that anytime at all. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon. Bye.